When I think of authenticity, I think of honesty, not only with myself, but also with God. And that's the conversation that I'd like us to have today because authenticity is not just about sharing your wounds and making sure that people can relate with them, but it's about understanding what part of you they have actually come to activate so that they can teach you to be authentic about your life and about yourself. My name is Jane. Welcome to Make an Impression. I created this space because I want to help you, who is a woman of faith and you're struggling with fear, overcome it so that you can live your most authentic life through faith and bold action. Let's dive into today's conversation. I know we've been speaking about identity, the things that we think define us, but when we looked deep down into what these things actually do, we realize that they are not part of our identity. They are what forms who we are. But really, when you look at what identity is really who are you when all these things are taken away from you. I hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've been able to have so far. And now we're going to be getting into the space of authenticity, one which I know can be raw and sometimes rogue, and all those things capped up in one. But I'd like us to look at what authenticity is and how it ties into our identity, and what that forms as part of who we are. When I think about authenticity, for me, I think it's one of the things that it's a place of honesty where I'm not only honest with myself but also honest with God, because being at that place gives you a true understanding of who you are, your authentic self. And once you find who you are, you find out who you are, the conviction to want to live out the best of who that person is starts from a place of authenticity. I like that we started exploring our workbook from a place of identity, because as long as we don't know who we are, as long as at the core of it we don't understand where our power comes from or what defines us as human beings, then we are definitely not able to get to the space of being the best form of ourselves. And when we think about identity, it goes hand in hand with authenticity. The only way you can understand your identity is if you're authentic with yourself. And that's what we're going to be exploring in the next few weeks, talking about what authenticity means. And for me, for a long time, I thought authenticity is really just sharing your wounds, putting your wounds out there. And as long as people can relate with your wounds, then that means you're being authentic. But while I'm walking in this journey of identity, and even as I was going through, coming up with the workbook that I have made available for you, if you are a woman who's looking who's pursuing identity, or you're not just trying to get things right by yourself or within yourself, these are some of the things that you're going to be looking at. And so I am realizing that authenticity is really just reaching a place of honesty with yourself, and not only with yourself, but also with God. It's really just getting to a place of an understanding that this is who I am at the core of who I am. These are the things that I struggle with, and these are the things that I am good at. These are the things that I have failed in. And while in that failure, I have understood that I don't get to be defined by those things. And what has that done? It takes me back to the place of being honest with God, being authentic in that space, being authentic with God, being in an understanding that while I am sitting here talking to you about these things, or while I'm sitting here and talking about my experiences, the intention is not really so much that you can come and sit here and come and listen to me and get to see my experience. The intention is really just to see that I have an understanding of who I am, and because I have an understanding of who I am authentic in how I speak. I am authentic in the conversations that I have. I am authentic in how I represent myself, because there's a certain level of honesty that can only be seen through the experience of the life that you're living. That does not necessarily mean that it has to be wounded. Yes, our authenticity comes from our wounds. And it doesn't mean that just because I don't sit here and talk about how wounded I am, or to what extent these wounds, I want to expose them out there. But it's just so that I can help you understand that being authentic with yourself is understanding those things that have caused you to lose your identity, and now using them for the purpose which God has created you for. Because I believe that every experience that we get to go through in life is part of a defining moment. It's part of what convicts us to want to be honest with our lives. It's part of what convicts us to want to speak about things that we know can help other people. The reason why I say that I want to help you, who is a woman of faith, overcome fear, is because I have been a woman of faith for the most part of my life, but a big portion of that life was being driven by fear, which was making me be performative. So in the sense that, yes, I was walking in this faith journey, but because of the fear that I had within myself, the fear that I had of disappointing other people, the fear that I had of coming out of just being myself, of being who I really think I am and who I know that God has called me to be, is what caused me to not live in my fullest potential. But because now I understand what that looks like, and now I'm able to authentically speak about that thing, and authentically live a life that fulfills me, that puts me in a space where I know that this is the purpose to which God has called me to activate strength, or to activate confidence in that woman who's struggling with fear. Yes, they have the faith. Yes, they have the capacity. But because there is that fear that keeps driving them, that fear that keeps making them not be authentic about the things that they need to be searching or they need to be working on right now, that is why Make an Impression exists. And when I talk about authenticity, I'm actually going to link our core values. I'm always replaying them in every video, because for me, it's to help you get an understanding of why we have these conversations. We want to be authentic in these spaces that God has called us to be in. And in order for us to be authentic, we have to reach a place where we are honest with ourselves, honest with our failures, honest with our pride, honest with our ego, because unless you get to that place where you can actually sit with your honesty and say, I'm actually struggling with this thing, and that is why this fear is causing me not to move from point A to B. That is where the struggle is. And then it does not end there, because yes, you can be authentic with yourself and you can say, I'm struggling with this thing. But if it ends there and you're not authentic with God, you're not inviting God into that situation, you're not inviting God into that space where you know that He's convicting you to be honest, He's convicting you to come out of this place. But because you're stuck at the point of, as long as I'm honest with myself and I'm honest with my audience and I'm telling them what I'm going through, and they can sense and they can feel the pain through me, it's not about feeling the pain most of the time. It's also being able to see that this person has an understanding of where it is that they have come from and the journey that they are walking towards becoming a better person. Hey there, before we dive further into the video, I would like to introduce you to our Bold Faith and Authentic Identity workbook. This season for me has been about unlearning who I was told to be and rebuilding who I truly am, rooted, honest, and whole. Many of us were taught identities that sounded spiritual but slowly shrinked us. Be strong even when you're breaking. Stay quiet even when something is wrong. Carry it alone because God understands. But strong faith is in silent struggle, and obedience to God is in self-erasure. That's why I created this workbook. This workbook is not loud. It does not rush you. It does not demand answers you're not ready to give. It offers solace, understanding, and a safe place to rebuild your identity with God without silencing your story or minimizing your pain. It's not about revisiting the past in detail or forcing quick healing. It's about gently peeling back the layers of who you were told to be and rediscovering who you are beneath it all. My desire is that this will help you answer the question, who am I beneath the labels, expectations of others, and survival modes? Inside, you'll find reflective prompts to identify false identities formed through survival, faith-anchored exercises that invite honesty without shame, space to process, pray, and rebuild from a deeper place of truth, gentle guidance for women navigating transition, grief, clarity, or quiet courage. If you're in a season of unlearning, redefining, and choosing truth over endurance, this workbook was created with you in mind. Check out our website www.makeanimpression.org and grab yourself a copy. I do look forward to seeing the transformation that this workbook will do for you. So that's what for me authenticity is. And that's kind of what is going to be guiding us in the next few weeks when we're going to be talking about the things that are going to draw us close to our authenticity, how we are supposed to be honest with ourselves, and how it does not stop there, how we are also supposed to be honest with God, because remember we started from a place of identity and it doesn't end there. You don't just get to understand that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You don't just get to understand that, God has given you gifts and abilities and all these things. But then now that you have that identity, what then do you do with it? Where do you start? You start from a point of authenticity, being authentic with yourself, being honest with yourself, and being honest with God. I really hope you choose to join us in this conversation. I'm going to leave a link in the description box of our workbook. It's called our Bold Faith and Authentic Identity Workbook. It takes you through the journey of understanding, yourself, of being able to take yourself to that place where you're convicted enough to be honest, to live an honest life, to do things out of conviction, to do things out of, understanding of who you are and not just the masses, not just following the masses, and not even concerned about the following or this. We recently attended the Epic. By the way, if you didn't attend the Epic Women Assembly, you really missed out. It was such a beautiful event, and one of the speakers was saying that sometimes what God will call you to do will not be to be able to gain favor from the masses. It might just be for that one person who needs to hear from you and who needs to see the life that you're living, and that is evidence enough to make them move. And so it's more of understanding that being authentic is not so that you can relate with my problem so much, but also that you can relate with the understanding of the honesty, with the understanding of the journey that has taken me to that point of wanting to be authentic with the life that I am living. It's more of a journey, it's more of a process, and that's why I started with identity. If you haven't watched any of our videos, just scroll back, I think 4 weeks back, all those videos we've been talking about identity and how we fix them into our day-to-day lives, while that is completely different from who God says we are. And now once we have that understanding, then we get to a space of, am I being authentic in this space? Am I being authentic in this identity that I now know of? Am I being authentic in what I'm pursuing? That's what we're going to be focusing on. If it's your first time here, karibu sana. Welcome to Make an Impression. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and become part of this growing community. Other than that, if any of the videos bless you, if you find any teaching, I would really love to get a comment from you. Leave me a comment, leave me a heart, leave me something. Just let me know that the conversations that we put out here are blessing you. Also, remember to give the video a like. It also helps many other women to be able to access the same video, or basically just a bigger audience to be able to access the conversations that we have here. That's it for today's video. I hope to see you. I hope we continue to grow in this space, and I hope as we get to the end of the topics that we're going to cover when it comes to authenticity, we will have grown a notch higher into becoming the women that God has called us to become. That's it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.